So today we're going to go over some maintenance and ways to improve the life of your longboard. So first thing we want to do is get a longboard and kind of set up some sort of workstation to work with. Alright, now we're all set up here. You really just want to have some sort of table or something to work on and just get your longboard. The first thing I'm going to do is just go over kind of the anatomy of your longboard, just the different parts. The biggest part of the longboard, we have the deck. That is kind of the heart of your longboard. It holds everything together, and it's just really the biggest piece. And then the other component is really the trucks, and within the trucks there's a lot more parts, but we'll go over that later once we take them apart. The most important tool you can have for working with your longboard is a skate tool. This skate tool I have here has 3 different socket sizes on it. It has one for the kingpin, the largest one. The medium-sized one is for taking out the wheels on the axle nuts, and the smallest one is for the hardware. So we'll be using the medium-sized socket to remove your longboard wheels. You're just going to place the socket on this hanger nut here, and you're going to remember lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, so we're trying to loosen this nut up and just remove that. Alright, and you want to be careful. You want to hold on to this nut here, and also there should be 2 washers or speed rings, they're commonly called, between each wheel. So you're going to want to hold on to those. I'll just save some time here and speed up the process of me taking out the wheels. Next, I'm going to go over how to get your bearing, which is on the inside of your wheel, out of the actual wheel. So it's kind of tricky at first. What you do is you want to put your wheel back on to your axle here, and you're going to just have that one bearing that's on the tip of this piece right here. You're going to insert that, and then you want to torque it this way, and it'll just pull that bearing right out of there. Just going to go like this. That'll pop right out. And one thing that'll be in between those 2 bearings is you're going to have one of these spacers. You may or may not have this, but you just want to hold on to those, set those aside. For the other side, do the same thing. Just put it through that one bearing, and then just torque it to the side, and it'll pop right out. It requires a little bit of force, but it's not too bad. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the rest of the bearings now. Alright, so next I'm going to go ahead and show you to remove your trucks. So the truck, you're going to want to take this hanger off first, because right now it's in a position where I can't get my skate tool on these hardware because the hanger's in the way. So first I got to take that hanger off. Right, next we're going to go ahead and remove our hanger. This hanger is this big piece right here. The only thing that holds it on is this nut right here, this kingpin, and there's a nut on the other side. We're just going to use the largest socket on our skate tool and remove that. It'll take quite a few turns actually, depending on how tight you have your truck set up. You're going to keep going. This nut over here completely comes off. Alright, the last part to remove your trucks is getting this base plate off your deck. And I actually like to sit down for this because I can kind of hold the board in between my legs, because you need to get on this side of the board and also on this side of the board to remove that nut and bolt. So the one last piece that's on your skate tool I didn't talk about yet is this little key here. It has a Phillips on it, and you're going to use that to remove the hardware from your skateboard that's holding the base plate on. So I like to go like this. Just insert this key into this hardware that's on the top. Let's see if I can give you a closer look here. It's just a regular old Phillips. Just insert that right there. And you're going to go from the other side with the smallest socket on your skate tool. And just come on one of these 4 hardware right here and just keep turning until that comes off. And this may take a long time depending on how long your hardware is. And I usually like to remove each nut and bolt and just kind of pair them back together so I don't lose anything. I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of the hardware. What I'm going to do to speed this up is use a power drill on the Phillips side, and that'll just make things go a little quicker. So next we're going to move on to the actual cleaning of your longboard bearings. The things you're going to need for this is, first of all, obviously your bearings, and you're going to need a cleaning tool, I guess you would call it. This is one I actually made here at home, but you can purchase these from Bones online or at your local skate shop. It's basically something that holds your bearings in some sort of bottle or container, and you can use it to clean your bearings, and you can get them online for maybe anywhere from $5 to $10. And you're also going to need some sort of lubricant. I have here some Bone Speed Cream. You can also use something like a fine sewing lubricant or something like that. And the last thing you're going to need is some sort of solvent. I personally use paint thinner or mineral spirits. Everybody has their own favorite cleaning solution. This is mine. There are 3 types of bearing shields on your bearings. I have 2 here today. The most common that you're going to run into is this rubber shield. You can tell that, see this red covering on the bearing? That's around the outside. That's a rubber shield that has a copper or something, a race on the inside that the bearings run against. The other kind I have here is a sealed bearing. With this, if you have sealed bearings, you will not be able to open this bearing up and actually get in there and clean the inside of the bearing. The other kind all has a sort of C-clamp that holds the bearing shield in. Now I have here the 3rd type of bearing shield. This one is actually, it's the hardest to get open, and it's kind of hard to see how it's really different than the others. But this one has sort of this C-shaped little metal piece that holds the shield in, and I'll just show you how to remove this. The easiest way to do it is to take your sewing needle, and there's this C-shaped little race that runs on the inside of this bearing shield. It's really hard to see, but you're just going to have to kind of bear with me here. And essentially what you do is you have to try and get this needle to pop this little C-shaped piece out. You can see here, I've kind of got it to pop out a little bit, and then this piece will come all the way out. Alright, now once that's out, you may need to use a razor blade to actually get this bearing shield to come out, just by inserting the razor blade into the inner race. Being very careful and just kind of trying to gently work this shield out. And just like that, you can see this metal shield is out now, and now you can see the inner parts of the bearing. To get into the inside of this bearing, we're going to need to get past this rubber shield that stands in the way. To do that, we're going to need our sewing needle. And essentially what you do to remove the shield is you're going to stick this sewing needle on the inside of this race and going to kind of pry out this bearing shield. And it'll just come out just like that. You can see this. And you can already see there's a bunch of dirt and grime on the outside of this. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the rest of my bearing shields. You can tell these bearings are actually not in great shape because I went all winter without cleaning them, and they have kind of seen better days. So next I'm going to take my cleaning device here. Again, you can use something else, like maybe just a cup, but it's nice to have something you can set your bearings into and really clean the inside of them very well. So next I'm going to take my bottle that I'm going to use to clean out my bearings. I'm going to fill this about 1/3 to halfway full of my solvent or my cleaning solution. Well, maybe a little bit more. Alright, that's probably good for me. And I'm going to put the cap back on my bottle here, and I'm just going to shake this vigorously for about anywhere from a minute to like 5 minutes. Next, we're going to go ahead and dispose of this solvent, and we're going to rinse our bearings in warm water. Now that we've cleaned and rinsed our bearings, it's time to dry them off. There's a couple methods you can use for this, one of which is to use a hair dryer, which is pretty easy to get your hands on, or just to let them air dry. But what I like to do is use an air compressor. I have this air compressor hose with just a standard nozzle on the top, and I like to just spray my bearings. We're just going to remove our bearings from our bearing cleaning device, and then we're going to put some oil in them. You want to put the oil so that these balls are facing up, and you're going to just drop 1 to 2 drops in there. 2 is usually about the amount you want. Now that we have our bearings well oiled, we need to sort of spread that oil around the entire bearing. But first, we have to put our bearing shield back on. So what I like to do is just press your bearing shield back in. It's really easy. You just push it back in, and then just spin it between your fingers like this. Oops, like this, and it'll kind of get the oil all around your bearing and inside every part. I'm going to go ahead and do that for all 8 bearings. Alright, so now putting this bearing back together, it's pretty much the same basic idea. You're going to put this shield, you're going to take this shield and you're going to lay it back into this bearing. It'll just kind of fall into place. And the tricky part is just kind of getting this little C-shaped piece to get in there. What I like to do is kind of pinch it like this, and then you kind of push it, put that round edge into the bearing, and you kind of just guide the rest of it back in with your fingers. It usually goes in pretty well without too much of a fuss. Like that. Now that everything on our longboard is clean, it's time to start reassembling our board. It's pretty much the same as disassembly, but I'll give you a couple tricks and tips that make it a little bit easier. We're going to go ahead and start reassembling our board. I like to take 2 pieces of hardware, just those 2 nuts and our 2 bolts, and I like to put them through the holes that are in our deck for our trucks, just like that. And you may or may not have these spacers, which we talked about earlier. Mine do, so I'm going to put mine in there. And I'm going to remember to put my truck on with the round piece facing towards the tail, which it is. Oops. And then you can go ahead and just slide it through just like that. I'm going to go ahead and tighten my hardware back on. You can use your skate tool, but I prefer just to use a drill because it goes a little faster. So we're going to continue assembling our longboard by putting our hangers back onto our trucks. What I like to do is kind of put everything back on your kingpin, so you have both your bushings and your washers on there in the same order. And what you're going to do is you're going to guide your hanger into that pivot cup and then push it back in and just slide your hanger right through. And now you'll have the nut shown on the other side. You're going to grab your kingpin nut, push up against here, and then just kind of hand tighten it in there. It should go in easy, because if it goes in hard, you might be cross-threading it, and that's not good. Alright, so now we're going to put our wheels and our bearings back on the board. This is a little tedious the way I like to do it, but I think it makes it a lot easier in the long run. So first thing first, you want to put one of your speed rings onto your hanger axle right here, and then put one of your bearings with the plastic, not colored side facing towards the hanger, like that. Take your wheel with the side that will face outwards and push it on like this. And this way, the bearing will be in there like that. Alright, and then what you do is you put your other bearing, just like this, and your bearing spacer And you just go like this. And you use this axle to tighten up that bearing. Put your last speed ring on there, your washer, and then just finger tighten your nut on there, just so it'll stay on for now. So thank you for watching my instructional video on how to just maintain your longboard and all sorts of just basic things about how to take care of your longboard. Thanks for watching.